China's tea chains are growing beyond Asia. Chagee just made a splashy Wall Street debut last week, raising more than $400 million in its U.S. initial public offering. Its shares were up 16% in its debut session on the NASDAQ, defying market volatility and those tariff fears. The competition back home, as we just heard, is fierce. Rival tea brand Mixue has exploded to more than 45,000 locations worldwide. That, to put it in perspective, is more than McDonald's, while Nayuki is struggling after its 2021 Hong Kong IPO. Both Chagee and Lucken Coffee, a coffee rival, are now eyeing U.S. expansion. Chagee is planning to open up in L.A. sometime in the spring. Okay, let's talk more about these modern tea chains pouring innovation into the beverage market. And joining us, John Gong. John is a professor at the University of International Business and Economics in Beijing and a China forum expert. John, good to see you again.
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me.
It's a little tasty story. Chagee shares rising 43% on its debut, despite the trade tensions between the United States and China. What do you think this tells us about the investor appetite for Chinese consumer brands?
Well, first of all, I think the bubble tea is a very unique Chinese phenomenon. It's the equivalent of America's Starbucks. It's booming in mainland China. I think the market, some experts saying, already saturating. There's actually a Chagee store right near my home, just a block away. This is, I think, a phenomenon that's actually spreading to the rest of the world. As huge potential growth in other countries, including the United States. The second thing I think is that American investors are still very much enamored with this kind of explosive opportunities in China. This is a opportunity to own a piece of a growing business. And I saw some reports that previously, they were expecting the market valuation would be, a little bit over $5 billion. Now it's standing at $6 billion, $6.1 billion, making the owner and also the CEO, a multi-billionaire. I think this is still very much a success story, essentially reflecting a cooperation between China and the United States, even amidst the trade war and the sort of the anti-China campaign initiative from Washington.
And Chagee's $411 million IPO did mark the largest Chinese consumer listing since 2021. Now, how do you think this is going to influence perhaps other firms from China considering listing in the United States?
I think there is still a very long line of potential companies waiting to be listed in American stock exchanges. But I think there's also a political climate that's not very tuned for these listings. But I think there's still a very much of a difference between the government in Washington versus the American investors, the American investment community in Wall Street. They still very much welcome these kind of growth opportunities. So I think hopefully, the U.S. economy still operates under the free market principles and would be still welcoming these investment opportunities, regardless they're coming from China or from India or from other countries.
So another Chinese tea chain, Mixue, has 45,000 plus locations. What does this explosive growth reveal about Chinese consumer trends? And I think that's important to say, we need to make sure this is a trend and not a fad, or else you could see a lot of closed stores in another, 2 years or so.
It's already a very much established habit, actually, on the Chinese market. And I compare this to the Starbucks coffee. People here in China, as well as in the United States, pays somewhere between, I would say in the U.S., maybe $5, $6. Here it is like, $3. And this kind of a tea costs $2 to $3. There's a growing middle class in China. People, regularly pay for these kind of drinks. It's established habit already. Already experts are saying that the market in China is very competitive, is saturated. I don't think it's saturated, but still, quite competitive. It's a unique product. It's sort of a little bit of a high-end drink, other than coffee. And I think consumers really like it. At the end of the day, it's the product itself that is being liked by the market, by consumers, that is actually driving the growth of this entire industry. It's essentially a high-end kind of a drink, somewhat like Starbucks coffee. I think as the economy grows, as the middle class expands, there will be more demand for products like this on the market.
What about Lucken Coffee? Because it has managed to surpass Starbucks in China. What do you think Western chains can learn about this shift?
I think it's a little bit different from Starbucks coffee. First of all, they don't actually welcome you very much to stay in the shop for long. I mean, Starbucks is built as a third place, right? Other than office or home, people go there, spend some time, even hours there. That's the same thing here in China as well. Luckin is a little bit different. I mean, they don't have a lot of space for people to hang around in their stores.
Yeah.
But their products are priced much, much more competitively than Starbucks coffee. I think it's about like half of the price. Even though I actually, from a when you taste these two coffee, I think some noticeable difference. I would still go to Starbucks coffee, to have some better quality coffee. But nevertheless, there's a market for sort of a low-end coffee place. People just go and get a coffee during the breaks, during lunchtime, and it just go there for the coffee. You buy a coffee, it's a lot less cheap price, about half of the price of Starbucks coffee.
John, it's interesting coming back from China to see China consumers gravitate toward coffee and U.S. consumers now gravitate a little more toward tea. It's an interesting world out there. John Gong, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you.